Part of our research regarding this issue has been the fact that this council has been misdirected.
We can't hear you.
That some of you have been led to believe by some members of the the ACS board, including District 8's Representative Katie Gerald, that there is some concerns about animal abuse. You can see by her own statement on her own post, it's directed toward traffic, congestion, etc., downtown construction. Not about abuse. This is coming from a lobbyist who is actually married to an assistant city manager, Jeff Boyle. I don't know how many of you here know that she is married to Jeff Boyle, but having a person that's a lobbyist sitting on our ACS is a concern because there's definitely a connection between her purpose to remove the horse industry and the carriages from San Antonio. For the next page, please. Because there's more documentation here from Austin and some concerns with her lobbying in Austin. There was a lawsuit. Next page, please. You can verify that she does sit on Andy Elias's District 8 position, which also is a concern because he is pushing the EV carriages. But what we're concerned with, go ahead and stop that, if that'll be found on our Infuse essay site. Our concern is the lobbying to push this forward. The fact that we know from Dr. Espy that there's been no signs of abuse, no documented abuse, but we're still focusing on something that is misled because of what you all want to do with downtown and development. We know that. We read about it. We're aware of it. We're all planning. But that should not mean that an industry that's been here since 1865 should be removed. That is our history of San Antonio. Horses built San Antonio, brought families to San Antonio, to settle in San Antonio. They helped build this building for City Hall. They have built San Fernando. They are Texas. Horses are known as something proud about Texas. And when tourists come here, they don't stand next to a Via Bus to take a picture. They stand in line waiting to take a picture with the carriages. Hospitals reach out to them to bring their carriages to the children who went to medical services downtown and in the medical center. They don't want to see a Via Bus. So the reality is, there's something more to this, and more will be coming out through our research. But if you have paid lobbyists working against small businesses who never asked anything of the city council during the COVID shutdowns, but this council is purposely shutting them down because of politics, that is just disgusting. And your record will prove that your legacy on this council in 2024 would be that you are the people who shut down a historical part of San Antonio, a historical part of Texas history. And right now, you have people still offering thanks to people that brought in their horses to help people during Hurricane Lee. Because those horses brought and helped people that were stuck when the government wouldn't help them. Our government here is not helping small businesses, and we know it. During COVID, we know it was all fake. We know that the mandates were fake. We know that some people on this council received PPP loans. These individuals didn't. They survived. But guess what? They're not going to survive the youth and age of education. They just you are going to be doing. You are going to be euthanizing a carriage industry. And for what? Because some of you want to run for mayor. Some of you are working with Westwood and the Spurs. And we know that. There's been no sign of abuse, Jalen. None whatsoever, and we have it documented. And you can look away, because that's what you're doing, and you can give me the thumbs up. And that's exactly how you treat your constituency. And each and one of you right now, his response is your response, giving me the thumbs up. So I hope you consider the fact that you have the power to make some changes. And the police department knows too. There's no record of abuse. But they'll do whatever you tell them to do. And we know that. So Mayor, before you leave, think about what your leaving as advice. If you know this office, think of me right over where you want to send these people. Please understand that your legacy will be something that will go down in history. They fought wars. They were here during World War I, II, every other incident that we've had in the U.S. And we survived. But they can't survive this city council as you know that you watch jail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Rachel Wolf. Ms. Wolf will be followed by Carter Grant.
Good morning, Mayor, everyone. My name is Rachel Wolf. I'm with an animal advocacy organization called Voice for Animals. We have staffed an animal hotline for over 30 years. And in recent years, we've had more and more calls about people calling in with concerns about horses. This is just an inevitable part of what's happening with more and more people become sensitive to animal issues. Obviously, a transition will benefit the horses. That's obvious. But what's not so apparent is that this can also benefit the businesses. Contrary to what you've heard earlier today, as reported by the New York Times, businesses that have already transitioned into those in other cities have benefited because the number of fairs has remained stable. Please note that. They no longer have to worry about the time of when they're able to have their fairs because of the heat. They won't have that issue. And with climate change, that is only going to get worse as the heat increases. They're also not going to be required anymore to bear the financial burden of veterinary care, of feeding, and housing horses. So we ask that you please vote for an immediate transition towards the ban. We no longer live in the 1800s. It's time to move to the 21st century. Thank you.
Ms. Graham, you'll be followed by Joe Fernandez.
Good morning, Mayor and City Councilman. I want to first thank you for listening to your community today. My hope is that as each of us speaks this morning, we can all realize just how much of a privilege it is that we have the ability to be here, asking for our voices to be heard. Some do not have this privilege, and that's exactly why I am here. The horse carriage ban has been in debate for quite some time. There have been discussions on the business aspect, public safety, and animal welfare. Something stuck with me the most throughout the numerous discussions, and that is the failure to recognize that the horse carriage industry has victims involved. And where is their voice in this? Because when there is a victim involved, their voice is the only one that matters. Carriage business owners have claimed that they treat their horses well, and some council members have voiced that they believe them. A mistake has been made each time that discussion has occurred, and that is not taking that dialogue one step further and addressing the fact that cruelty doesn't have to always be present in order for something to be still considered exploitation. Horses are sentient individuals who experience reality. They have a will to live. They share a lot more similarities to us than they do differences. When we choose to focus on the differences, even if this happens subconsciously, oppression and exploitation can manifest. Someone presenting differently than us, having a different way of communicating than us, or being more vulnerable than us are not excuses to dismiss and dismantle someone's experience of their rights. No matter how well these horses are claimed to be treated, they are still being viewed as a use, a means for profit, a symbol of entertainment and vanity, not as the sentient individuals that they are. Their differences do not mean that they do not deserve the basic right of being free from exploitation. They are innocent and vulnerable, and as humans with moral responsibility, it is our duty to protect the innocent and the vulnerable, not make a commodity out of them, especially when we have the options that don't involve the exploitation of others, such as electric carriages. The solutions have been presented. It is now time for us to act with compassion and do what is right for the city, the community, and most importantly, the is standing on the right side of history. When we are deciding on matters such as this, where there are others involuntarily involved, we mustn't decide based on how does this affect us, but instead, how does this affect them, the ones being used, and the ones who cannot speak for themselves. Thank you.
Mr. Fernandez should be followed by Roman Downs.
Throughout history, societies have formed traditions, often without questioning their moral foundations. But tradition is not a justification for injustice. If you were, you would still accept practices that deny dignity and freedom to individuals based on arbitrary distinctions. We abandon some of those practices because we recognize they conflicted with fundamental principles of justice. The use of horse-drawn carriages is one such tradition that must be abolished. For too long, we have exploited horses, treating them as tools of labor or entertainment, rather than recognizing them as sentient beings. Horses are not objects. Their value does not depend on their utility to us. They are subjects of their own lives. Like us, they are some bodies, not some things. Breeding them into existence and forcing them into servitude strips away their autonomy and reduces them to mere commodities. Continuing this practice sends a harmful message that tradition takes precedence over justice. But progress demands that we question and reject traditions rooted in exploitation. To allow this practice to persist is to ignore the moral obligation we have to treat all sentient beings with respect and fairness. San Antonio has an opportunity to lead not by preserving an outdated, exploitative tradition, by affirming the values of compassion and justice. The time practice now.
Roman Downs. Mr. Downs will be followed by Leon Poole.
Hi, how's everybody doing? So I just have a few things to bring up. Consistently the conversation always goes on about what is good for bad for humans, but it's never really brought up around what is actually going on to the individuals, the victims of the choices of this industry. The first two people who were ever talking were threatening to send them to be killed if y'all voted for banning this in the future. That's just I don't grant there's plenty of sanctuaries that would take them to safely keep them the rest of their lives doing what they want to do in their own natural environments. The abuse factor keeps being brought up. The abuse is the exploitation and the enslavement of these individuals. That is happening all the time, always. They didn't help us build the United States. They didn't help us build this building. They were forced to. And we need to remember that they were forced into every situation that humans have been involved in with them. So we need to remember that when we're deciding what is going to happen with the industry that makes profit above all else over their life and experience. We need to focus on the victims that are going to be implemented by whatever decision you all decide and what is going to be happening for them, because those idle threats that they're just throwing around are not going to happen if we who are seeking over justice for them are allowed on our end to take care of them as well. So please don't play into any of those words. That's just nonsensical threats and fear mongering. These animals need help right now, but if 3 years is the best that we can figure out to do, then that would be ideal to end this exploitative, corrupt industry that doesn't make the city better. It just holds it back to hundreds of years ago when exploitation was still wrong and even less talked about. So now let's address these problems and change for the future. Thank you.
Leon Poole. Ms. Poole, you'll be followed by Tyler Ariski.
Good morning, everyone. Let's take a moment. Let's take a moment to ask ourselves, what kind of city do we want San Antonio to be? A city stuck in the past, clinging to outdated practices, or one that leads with compassion, progress, and innovation? Today we're here to discuss horse-drawn carriages, a practice many consider charming. But beneath that veneer lies a troubling reality, one that we must confront
transitioned to electric carriages like Montreal and Salt Lake City have reported increased tourism in their revenue. Visitors are drawn to the multi-crew-friendly rides, which fit perfectly with the rising demand for sustainable tourism. By switching to electric carriages, operators can reduce costs while maintaining, if not increasing, their profits. Change doesn't have to happen overnight. This is a practical three-year plan. Let me ask you one question. Where do you stand? Despite the clear alternatives, would you want profit over compassion? Imagine San Antonio, quiet, clean, electric carriages, no animal suffering, no more paid for cruelty. Let's try thinking forward.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be telling you guys from my perspective as a rideshare driver. Everyone knows that downtown can get congested. And when the operators are down there, sometimes they even trying to pass each other. I've taken pictures and have shared them with the bank there to social media. Excuse me. I want to tell you guys a story. One evening, I pulled over downtown to pick up a passenger. I parked briefly in the gap near the Carriages, but despite there being no signage reserving the space, I was never stopped with hostility from the operators. They came up to me, reporting me, telling me I can't park here, I need to go. I was in the way. I was in the way in my car that can do 100+ miles per hour. Now these characters are driving around 1 mile per hour, literally causing traffic. Some argue that the banning of horse-drawn carriages would harm and hurt the economy, but holding on to an industry that's already failing does not create stability. It delays progress, and as others claim, the practice is part of San Antonio's identity, where tradition should not outweigh public safety, traffic efficiency, and fiscal responsibility. Finally, you need to consider the welfare of the horses. Now, the other night, I was driving some passengers, and there was an operator who brought a horse right on my tail end of my car. I stood behind my car and felt the exhaust hitting my leg. That means that horse was getting a face full of exhaust. I got out of my car because there was a standstill traffic. I asked the operator, hey, do you mind backing it up so your horse can get some fresh air? He just looked at me like I was a crazy person. These are the operators. San Antonio is a city that honors its history, but we also need to embrace progress. Returning horse-drawn carriages would reduce traffic congestion, prevent unnecessary conflicts, and represent a step forward in our community. Thank you for your kind consideration.
Emily Doherty. Ms. Doherty will be followed by Joe Strauss Jr.
I left my notes with the baby. I'm sorry. He's not there. I guess I'm going to start out. I would like to say I am a homeowner in District 10. I also own a property in District 2. I was a resident there for 7 years. In addition, I've been a carriage operator since 2016. I would like to address some of the things that Councilman Elias brought up in our October 31st meeting. He said that he is very proud of our San Antonio tourism brand. I was also very proud of our brand. He said, of course, dying or falling down the street would be detrimental to this brand that we have. While I agree, I also would like to say that that has never happened here. There is zero documentation of that, and that is because we know how to take care of our horses, we know how to drive our horses, and we understand the difficulties and any sort of issues that may arise due to traffic or something else. What I don't agree with is the fact that shootings in downtown, shootings of tourists, shootings of fiesta-goers, that has happened this year in 2024. Someone was beaten to death in front of the Grand Hyatt. That damages our tourism brand. Horse carriages do not damage our tourism brand. In addition, we are so proud of the fact of how fast we did the airport deal, how fast we did Project Marvel, how fast we did the baseball stadium, and people out of jobs that provide a living wage. That's why we're arguing about this. That's why this matters. In addition, if we talk about traffic, we have traffic problems because there's lack of planning. I've been attending meetings since 2016 when we started talking about the Alamo renovations, closing Alamo Street. I've been asking questions about what's the traffic flow, what are the plans. They did traffic study Tuesday through Thursday in September or October. Do you know how much traffic there is downtown during those days? Zero. There's no traffic. Why didn't you do a traffic study when it mattered? Lack of planning is the reason we have traffic problems. We don't have traffic problems because of horse carriages. Y'all have a choice today. You can save our carriages. You can save our jobs. Make us proud of this city, not want to leave. Thank you.
Mr. Strauss, will be followed by Karen Dawn.
Mayor Dearborn, council members, my name is Joe Strauss Jr., probably the oldest junior you've ever met. I'll be 98 years old next month. I'm here to talk about this horse carriage issue. Why? I don't have any interest in it at all. I have a good friend that does, Ron White. Good friend of mine, his family has been in this business for 44 years here in San Antonio, 3 generations. They've never had any problems, no citations, no penalties, no tickets or violations of any kind. And here we are talking about something that's so insignificant when you compare it to what you all are charged to do now. The new airport, the home for the Spurs, the baseball, you name it, the public works and so forth. And why we're here talking about this, I still don't know. It's just an injustice that I want to speak up about. My family wants to know why I'm doing this. That's just because it's an injustice, in my opinion. We've been involved in a number of different things in San Antonio, not similar to this, but take the city wanted to tear down the Majestic Empire Theaters. My wife took it upon herself to raise the money privately, and look what happened with that. And also, my brother, after Hemisphere, he took it on himself to find a way to reutilize the Riverwalk, and brought in tourism there. It took him 2 years to get the private owners there to return the business around and face the river. Those are the kind of things that I think that everybody here ought to be doing. Here we are, these horses, Ron and his family, they have 15 of these gentle giant horses. They keep them out on the farm. I've had some horses out on that same farm. And they use 5 of them at a time, and they rotate them so that they don't get overused. When you go out there, they get the shoes pulled off, the hooves trimmed, put back on the shoes, and veterinarians look at them and so forth. They're very well cared for. And these carriages bring nothing but joy to this city. I take the kids at their birthday parties and use these things. And we got the visitors that come to San Antonio, and they love to see the things that make San Antonio so unique, riding these carriages. We're finding ways to reuse them more. I think that when you get the Battle Clouds Parade, that you all ought to be riding in these carriages and reach your supporters out there from these carriages rather than from no automobile.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Thank you very much. Karen Dawn. All right, Mark White. go separately, I think. Okay.
Hello, my name is Mark White. I'm a two-time Grammy Award-winning musician and proud owner of Legacy Home Improvements, one of San Antonio's premier roofing companies. In just a few days, we'll celebrate 25 years of business here in San Antonio. I'm not an employee of the Carriage Company, but I do have a personal connection to the issue. I'm the grandson of Lucille White, who started Lone Star Carriage Company in 1981 when I was 3 years old, who inspired me to start my own business. So today I'm here as a San Antonio business owner, deeply concerned about the precedent that this proposal sets. What's troubling is the process that led up to today's meeting. The city scheduled a Halloween special session to discuss the phase-out timelines for horse-drawn carriages. And that meeting was held the same day that the comprehensive study we just saw again, that the results of that were presented. How can we already call a special session about possible timelines for phase-out on the same day that the study's findings were finally being presented? The study didn't support the reasons for the ban with any substantive facts, but the study was meant to guide your decision. So how do you already have the meeting scheduled for the phase-out? You haven't even seen the proposal that's supposed to help guide your decision. Now, I'm not an attorney, but this proposal appears to conflict with Texas state law. The Texas Transportation Code 542.003 explicitly recognizes horse-drawn carriages as vehicles granted in the same rights as motor vehicles on public roadways. Along with that, House Bill 2127, enacted in 2023, prohibits local governments from enacting ordinances that conflict with and that are more strict than state law, including areas like transportation. So if there's no state ban, there can't be a local ban. If enacted, this ban could directly conflict with the state law, placing the city of San Antonio in legal jeopardy at the expense of the San Antonio taxpayers that you represent. So as an owner of a San Antonio business, I'm deeply alarmed by the council's arbitrary power of local industries. What's to stop the council from targeting another local industry next year based on incomplete data, or worse, an online poll? Every San Antonio business owner should be frightened by this precedent. Shutting down a regulated family-owned industry without concrete evidence is not only unjust, but it's reckless. So council members, before you vote, ask yourselves, when you decided to run for city council, was it to celebrate and participate job creation programs, happy ceremonies with oversized scissors and red ribbons, or was it to chomp at the bit to kill family-owned businesses without evidence based on an online form?
Thank you, Mr. White. You're seating your time, sir. Go to Rose. Okay, I'll call you up, Rose, when your name comes up. It says Marin Smith. I believe that's Mariah Smith. Okay. Yes. Chance Moreno? Okay, and who else? Okay. No, they know. As long as they're here, you can come up. Ms. Smith will have 9 minutes.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. My name is Mariah Smith, as you know, for I've been the lead activist spearheading this initiative for banning horse-drawn carriages. This is no doubt one of the most passionate issues in our city, and public input always proves this. I think it speaks volumes that the city-created survey broke record level participation with more than 47,000 responses. This was no doubt a widely taken survey because this was something not only open to residents, but tourists got the chance to participate in as well. And after seeing the survey results, the public opinion is clear on this. It has been shown out of 4 options, only one gained a majority of the vote, and that was a transition away from horse-drawn carriages. Public input showing you all that this is the way we need to go. And just like every other poll out there, we continually see the same result over and over again, which is that a majority of people are in favor already issued those carriage bans. So I want to thank the city staff and all their efforts they put into creating this, and if you pass this, it gives San Antonio the opportunity to lead the nation, really set an example for other cities on how to implement a ban, properly care, and guide carriage operators in their next steps forward. So many people are coming to a consensus on this from many different angles, and not just animal welfare. And I must reiterate once again that this is a citizen-led movement, and this has been citizen-led from the very start. Carriage operators and many others keep trying to portray anyone calling for a ban as crazy, illogical animal rights activists and attempt to discredit the very thing we all know that needs to be done. Regardless of the stance on welfare, it is clear that people have come to a collective agreement that horses no longer belong on modern-day San Antonio streets. There was a time and place when horse carriages played a vital role in society and transportation, but since then we've evolved significantly. And we keep hearing, we're going to get rid of tradition and culture, but that's not true because tradition and the San Antonio experience people speak of isn't dying because tradition isn't the horse itself. It's the ride, it's how you treat people, it's the way in which you give the tour, it's the surrounding downtown historic buildings and the connection you develop with people, which can all be done because of service. And it's important to note that just because something is a tradition and even a business doesn't mean it's right. And as a young Black woman, I will stand up here today and tell you that I can speak of a couple examples in the past that were once tradition, that were extremely immoral and unacceptable. Refusing to change because tradition is very close-minded. As we grow as individuals and as a city, it's our responsibility to evolve and adapt and reassess old traditions and create new ones that are principled and compassionate and that better reflect the values and goals of San Antonio. This concept of tradition and culture with carriages fails to account for all of these things, as well as the massive urbanization and technological advancement San Antonio is undergoing. And as the seventh largest city in the nation with heavy traffic and nonstop construction, public safety concerns and horse safety conditions will only continue to increase. These carriages are a fatal accident waiting to happen and are dangerous for all parties involved, the horse itself, the people riding the carriage driver, and the vehicle driver, and all the passengers alongside. As passionate as I am on welfare, you're not going to hear me really make this the basis of my speech because apparently I'm not an equine expert, so I can't. So I will remind you all, 3 months ago, a coalition of more than 100 Texas veterinarians sent you all a letter listing the adverse health effects horses from this industry suffer from. And I just want to highlight, these are veterinarians not paid for by the city. There's no conflict of interest involved in them. It's very disappointing to see the carriage industry and its operators continuing to spread lies and fear tactics to keep their profits circulating. This for-profit industry is just that, because the same people that claim to care and love their animals and call them family have also threatened to slaughter all of their beloved family members if the ban were to pass. Even when we have rescues eager and able to take these horses in. More information was also just said by this gentleman, Joe Strauss, who also has ties to Temple Park and was a park owner of that, and said there's no violations. When SAPD clearly presented to us in past meetings, they have 100 citations for violations. Anybody that goes downtown has seen for themselves how every corner you turn, there's almost a potential accident. There's horses trying to run red lights, congestion building up in carriages, via bus drivers being frustrated, horses lagging and dragging themselves, moaning at the mouth, and exhibiting all clear signs deeming an equine unfit for use, which we have the evidence of online. Carriage people say that the evidence we have is perfectly timed, but that's not true. There's no such thing. The pictures and videos are what they are because it's what's happening. So the option is clear. It's time for San Antonio to do the right thing. We're already behind on this, and this is long overdue, and it's something the community has been very vocal in wanting from you guys for a very long time. The fact is that horse-drawn carriages are causing more harm than good and are no longer aligned with the pressing needs of San Antonio. It's 2024, not 1864. It's time we finally put it into this practice and leave the horse carriages to the historic days and make space for more modern and innovative practices to emerge. Thank you, and thank you guys for
your minutes to Mr. Stratton? Okay, you'll have 6 minutes, Mr. Stratton.
Good morning, council members. I stand before you today in yet another attempt to reach an understanding between your offices and the carriage companies that your agendas have seemed quite concerned with this cancer. My coworkers made numerous emotional pleas in an attempt to devote your compassion to no avail. With this in mind, I will attempt to reach your understanding of your logical response. Before I begin, a bit of context of who I am. I'm a 27-year-old United States Marine Corps veteran. I was honorably discharged from active duty in July of 2020 after serving 4 years in the infantry unit of 105. Today, I am self-enrolled at Texas A&M University San Antonio, and I'm registered at 100% military disability. Since then, I have been employed with Blue Bonnet and Lollipop Carriages since they have been willing to work with both my disabilities as well as my scholastic schedules. Let us begin with the city-issued survey that received a response rate of approximately 50,000 people. The numbers for this particular survey, assuming that they were accurately charted with an acceptable margin of error, does not fully encompass the opinion of the entirety of San Antonio. The full population of San Antonio, according to the World Population Review, is 1,513,974 people. They arrived at this projection through the latest United States Census that was released in May earlier this year. With these numbers in mind, the survey successfully reached 3% of the population of San Antonio. With this percentage in mind, the people who are supportive of closing the carriage companies therefore reach an even lower percentage. Another issue that should be addressed, that is, the council has yet to provide an acceptable professional opinion that supports their claims that the industry itself is detrimental to our horses. You have blatantly disregarded our experts in the field, whether they be veterinarians, farriers, animal control agencies, or veterinary technicians, but have not been able to provide any expert who is willing to supply the answer that the majority of the council desires to hear. The next issue is the ideals that the council holds authority over the horses that each company owns. The idea that any kind of governmental agency holds the power of asset forfeiture of any kind of privately owned company is directly disregarding the ideals we hold as Americans in a free market society. This is not a democratic practice. This is not a common American strategy regardless of agendas. The idea that government can seize any or all assets of that are privately owned is a totalitarian and communist approach. This has never been our way, and we should not begin that way of thinking now. Before anyone should object to this claim that I'm making, I would like to remind the audience as well as the council that just last month, on record, the council made inquiries and suggested actions on who would house our horses other than the proper owners, and what could be done to secure them. This record is open for all to see, as all these meetings are open for all public access. The next issue is that the oppositional views being barred from comment. The last council meeting, those with the council's preferred viewpoint were addressed and openly communicated with on their views. Well, I'm committed to address the council. Yet this only seems to apply to any individual that disagreed with the council's actions or deliberations. My next issue is more of a question on what is to become of San Antonio's working animal climate should the dismissal of carriages come to pass. Will all working animals then be barred from San Antonio? Will the San Antonio Mounted Patrol be disbanded? Will the rodeo not be allowed to enter San Antonio? Will service animals for people not be permitted to do their jobs? How far will this city council allow people with no professional input go in regulating the population? Will we no longer be allowed to possess pets? Will San Antonio go and seize the land of ranch owners as well as their animals they require to sustain themselves and their families? Again, I ask, how far will this go? I want to thank you for your time to address the council on this sensitive matter, and I pray that you find a solution that is not harmful to this industry or the population of San Antonio or
gets to be heard. Lacey, Jessamine, you can be followed by Rosedale.
Hello, my name is Lacey. I'm with Wildlife Rescue Rehabilitation, a nonprofit that's in Southern San Antonio for many years. The state is on our behalf. Now the decision has already been made to make sure this is the right thing for the horses. We worked hard toting tourists and to work hard in downtown San Antonio. Can there be any good reason to continue delaying taking action? These horses have put in their time. They've done enough and they have more than paid their ways. Let us not wait to reward them. Let us look for ways to prove that there are times that compassion is more important than money. Every act of kindness that we commit is what makes the world a better place. Now that the decision has already been made to cease the use of them, I'm sure that we can agree not to wait years, but to act now and give these noble animals the relief they deserve. Let us think of them, the horses who never asked to do this job, who carried it out with dignity and silence, and they worked long and hard enough. Please, in the interest of kindness to all animals, I encourage you to act now on their behalf and end this practice sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Ms. Jessamine Rosedale. Ms. Gill, you can be followed by Devin Bannon. You'll have 6 minutes, Rose.
Good afternoon, Council, and my Councilman, David Rodriguez. My name is Rose Hill. I'm a 35-year community leader in District 2, and I'm also a previous small owner business of the business that I had in construction. I'm here today to support these 5 local horse and carriage industry. Why? Because there's a lot of miscommunication. We talk about eliminating these animals. They have been, first of all, I want to say today, I ask you to vote no. Second of all, I ask you, Jacob, to consider the negotiations that have been put before you. This is going to affect families. Put these people in bankrupt and possibly do this at the most horrible time, in Christmas time. We could have waited till January, February, but we chose to do it at Christmas time, leaving these people to believe, will they have a job tomorrow, which is very sad. Second of all, we talk about eliminating animals, and I've heard people here talking that the animals are being abused. What about the Bear County horses that are being worked? What about our animals for SAPP? What about the rodeo that works 2 weeks straight? So we have to take all that into consideration. I want to also acknowledge the fact that there is no abuse. And there's 2 things that I ask you to consider. Negotiations that are put forth by these people asking you. And second of all, I ask you, have you done your research? Have you really gone down, Jada, to look at the horses for yourself and say, as a councilman, yes, there is abuse. Yes, this is why I'm doing this. And then I would wholeheartedly believe you, Sam. I hope that you, as our leader in District 2, will show forth some compassion today for these people. Be the leader that we vote, well, for those who voted for you in District 2.
Ms. Hill, you're
And I will follow.
Council. Thank you.
So I think, again, a negotiation, each of you within your district say, we talk about small businesses. We're always promoting that as small businesses here. But today I ask each and every one of you deep down, as you consider your decision today, tell yourselves how you tell your people in each of your districts that you support small businesses, because this is what it's about. Today it's about small business. This is a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big deal because small businesses are what makes San Antonio grow, economic development. We're always talking about economic development. We're talking about bringing monies. This horse industry, it falls in District 2. And I can tell you that we got to practice, ladies and gentlemen, what we preach. Each one of you were voted in because of small businesses. Each and every one of you have compassion, understand, and think about the decisions you're going to make today, how it's going to affect the lives of people. Now, some of you, these people are not in your district, but if it was in your district, would you want this to happen? I don't think so. Mr. Mayor, this is your last term. I ask you and all the city council to wholeheartedly think about what y'all are going to do today. And if we can't decide on not voting for it today, or no, yes or no, please think about the negotiations that are being put forth from you. They didn't ask any money from you during the pandemic. They stood on their own 2 legs. They worked hard. These people work hard for a day's work, and those horses are working horses. They're not being abused. They're not being, a lot of things that are being said about them. I just want to tell you, I want to commend Terry Castillo and Mark White for being out there and showing us that what true leadership is, because they know that if that was happening in their district, they know what it is. And I can tell you that basically small businesses are important. They're important to the history of San Antonio. And today, it's a sad day that I have to come before you to ask and plead with you to consider not to do this. Hoy es un día muy triste en San Antonio para que nosotros podamos venir aquí y pedirles a cada uno de ustedes que no hagan esto. No hagan esto, no es justo para esa gente que tiene familias, especialmente en Navidad. This is Christmas time. This is a time of joy. Maybe each one of us and a lot of other people here will say it's joy, but what about those people? They don't know what tomorrow may bring. Let's not do this, San Antonio. Let's not let each and every one of you, the elections are coming up, mayors, people who run for mayors, I hope that you can stand before you when you go before elections and you can say, this is not the legacy I left, but this is something that I'm here willing to do, is to negotiate today. So please, do not do this, City of San Antonio. Do not do this to these people, because these people are we don't work for us, we don't work for you. Please, don't do this to the people of San Antonio, and don't do this to these hard-working families that work every single day with those horses. They bring passion and love to those animals. They do not abuse them. Let's stop the falsification, and let's be honest. Let's do the research, and let's negotiate.
Speak up.
Ms. Van, you'll be followed by Grace Rose Gonzalez.
My name is Devin. I've been a carriage driver in downtown San Antonio for over 8.5 years now. I beg of you not to take our jobs away from us. I beg of you to see what will happen to all these small businesses if you do this. Not just my family, but countless of families. The families that fix our wheels, the families that we buy our hay and our meat from. The list goes on and on. We love our horses and so do the people that come to visit this beautiful historical city. I have 5 beautiful children and a new grandbaby that this job helps me support them. Please, again, I beg of you not to do this to us, our families, or our horses. Dear Lord, I pray that you open the minds and the hearts of the city council members sitting here today. I pray that you hear what we are saying, and I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Grace Rose Gonzalez.
Yeah, and I have Lisa Barnes' time.
Lisa Barnes.
Lisa Barnes.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Ms. Gonzalez, you'll have 6 minutes.
Hello. I'm Grace Rose Gonzalez, and I'm appointed on the swim meet for the Bexar County Precinct 4. I've also served on SBAC for the city for small business and Hispanic Chamber Board of Directors for small business. And so I have a passion for small business, being a small business owner. So let's talk about the lack of joy these days. The pressure from the back room of the bipolar building, the dismantling of small business and affirmative action plans, a mantra of the incoming leadership while Project 2025 moves. We are facing an AI tsunami that is changing the employment landscape with the displacement of thousands of workers. Because mounting daily pressures, we now have support animals, such as Councilwoman Martha Hero. That is with her daily to give her comfort and joy. These red horses are in fact support animals for their owners, working alongside them every day. Horses are known for their healing abilities, now invited to hospitals and nursing homes for comfort for the sick and those in hospice, and they're working. What would you do, Councilwoman, if you were told, here replaced with a stuffed animal because people believed Hero is abused by going to work with him. As Dr. Esper testified, there was no reform and irresponsible, and yet the abuse falsehoods continued as a narrative. This vote will kill 5 SMWBE LGBTQ carriage companies and replace them with a driverless, horseless alternative. As Councilman Carr, I would be grateful that no one is taking Hero away from him to rehoming them because animal rights advocates say that life in a pouch is abusive. The logistics of the plans on how that need to be discussed have been dismissed because there has been no real conversations with the businesses. And as somebody who has served on the Port Authority, this man chamber, a zoning commissioner, and chair of the Cultural Arts Board, the only way that you can come to good decision making is by working together. And as of today, these businesses have not been brought to the table to meet with any of you council people in a meaningful way. To say economic development and SAPD worked with them, well, I will tell you as somebody who worked on Bradbridge Park, the 2017 bond on the committee, and we were told that the Parks Department had umpteen meetings with us, and we had them over at the Liddy, and we weren't even given a microphone to say what we thought, and you had hundreds of people there that attended over 7 to 10 months. This is a travesty when we talk about collaboration and communication. And I hope all of you will consider tabling this item so that you can have real collaboration. These horses are not abused. These horses are, in fact, support animals. They've all been already rehomed one time, and they have come to these carriage businesses for sanctuary. And they enjoy their work. Those are Pershons and Clydesdales. At the world's record, 59,000 pounds at one Clydesdale pull. You don't tell me that this is abusive to pull a tiny little cage with 3 people in it. So get your facts straight and start acting as leadership with leadership goals of sitting down with these people and actually working this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Captain Stevens. Stevens, Christopher Stevens.
Give it
to the captain. Okay. Anybody else? All right, go ahead for 6 minutes. And you'll be followed, Ms. Stevens, by Jack.
Hello, my name is Kathy Stevens. I'm here today, of course, about the CCR, the Commercial Carriages. I work for Blue and Lollipop Carriages. Been an operator in San Antonio since 2008. I came before council many times discussing changes and compromises that could be made to the horse-drawn carriage industry's ordinances. And all of those times previous to this occasion, compromise has been done. We have had discussions, there has been talks, and until this time. There's been one German plan, and that is to essentially ban horse-drawn carriages in San Antonio. You talk about the CCR, how there will be compromises, there are other locations that can be looked at or changes that can be made. At no point has that ever happened with the horse-drawn carriage industry. The people that have came to spoke with us have spoken on one driven plan by council and the transportation advisory board. Even said that they put recommendations in. Those recommendations were never looked at by council. In your last meeting on October 31st, your proposal was brought to you guys when many of you asked for questions to be answered by these departments in your facility to come back and bring a presentation on this. Where's that presentation? Where are those answers? You talk about sanctuaries that our horses can go to. Are those sanctuaries going to pay off our debts to take our animals? Who's going to pay off
these horses are our assets to our company, where is that money coming from? Because these horses, you're right, you cost a lot of money. They are in a sanctuary with us. We are paying for that up here. We are paying for that upkeep. Who's going to pay with that for that? Do you think because they're in the field that care is not no longer required? Who is going to pay for those things? We talk about that the horses can go be euthanized and be put down. That's because bankruptcy court will come over and take our assets, because our largest assets to our company are our horses. And they will be sold at your highest bidder. Do you know who the highest bidder for a draft horse is? Meat markets. Because a draft horse weighs on average between 1,600 pounds to over 2,000 pounds. My largest horse is 2,380 pounds. You know how much money you make on the meat market? Quite a bit. That is what we're saying. We're not saying we're going to go put these horses down. Exploitation is not there. I drive a 2,020-pound draft horse. There's not a darn thing I can do to do to that horse to get him to do something. I ask him, and he obliges. My horse enjoys every part of walking and getting that exercise. Until you come experience that, you can never understand what we do on a daily basis. E-carriages. You can go ahead and do that. E-carriages have been brought up on many occasions. We've been told that permits will be transferred at that. However, in the last meeting, the mayor also said that there was a congestion problem, and he didn't understand why e-carriages were being brought up right now. When there's a congestion problem, that this is what we're addressing. So why are we looking at that? However, we have e-carriages operating in downtown right now without permits. This has been brought to the city's attention many times, and he's still operating for money for passengers taking rides. I took a ride myself and paid him for it. But it's been overlooked. It's happening on a nightly basis in downtown San Antonio, where this gentleman was operating without permits, but yet we're standing here when we're illegally operating through the city council. We do have debt. We are trying to negotiate in ways to pay this off. However, we need time. And it seems to be that that's overlooked, and it just said, well, you guys should have already been doing this. This has been over time. We do have overhead. We do have leases. Those leases don't still go away because the city council sets up. Those loans don't go away just because the city council sets up. That's what us as owners are looking at, to try to say we need time. So if this will not be tabled or re-looked at to be a new vision, then we're asking for more time. We have asked that you guys look at different areas that we can operate, that aren't in the middle of Hard Rock Cafe, in the middle of the majestic traffic, in the middle of congestion that has been diverted from Alamo Street. But where is that compromise? Where is the table? I myself wrote up a whole plan, marked on maps, and it has been no response. We submitted it to all the right departments and have gotten nothing in return. Isn't that the job of this council? Isn't that the job of the council, to look at small businesses, look at these proposals and come back and say, this is what we can do? There wasn't even a no. It was just nothing. So how is council doing the proper job in its departments if we're not even getting those small, tiny little answers? So I'm asking you to look at what has happened and look at your process and actually see if you're checking the boxes that you're supposed to be following these rules. Thank you.
All right, Carlos Vedina.
Morning, Mayor and council people. Just a quick comment. If you make your way downtown on a Saturday night, Friday night, whichever it is, you walk that. You walk those streets. Everybody's sharing those streets. The lowrider life comes out. Big music, exhaust everywhere. Don't be fooled when they say there's no abuse, because that's abusive right there. Just subjecting them to that. There's different forms of abuse, as we all know, psychological abuse. I'm sure something's going on with each and every of those horses' lungs. They have to ingest that smoke, all of that crap. Don't fall for that. And I just want to make a quick comment about them dragging down the rodeo and all of that stuff. Yeah, you're right. You're thinking critically now. You're not thinking about just yourself, right? Tracking down. Labor should be abolished. That's exactly what it is. You hear these people taking the book out, taking the page out of the slave master book, saying they were bred for this. We've been doing this for a long time. That's not justification. That's all fallacies. That's all unethical. So we ask you here to do the right thing. Vote for the right thing. We've done our work. I personally been arrested for speaking up against these. They say they're good people. These people are so horrible. I've spoken to like a lot of them. And I've got footage of even horse carriages backing up into cars. They are so unaware. They are always on their phone. They don't follow basic laws. Supposedly, horse carriages are just like vehicles. You see these horses, they're full of ornaments, full of Christmas lights. What is that? Can we do that to our personal cars? Of course not. They're cry some more, because these are animals and they have feelings just like you, just like your dogs. All right? So cry more if you want, but it's going to happen whether they do it here now, today, whether you get those 3 extra years. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So thank you for letting us speak about this, and yeah, we'll see y'all out there. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is everyone who signed up to speak on item 3. Appreciate all the observance of our rules so that get their voices heard. We'll go now into council discussion. Before we do, let me have a motion on item 3.
Move to approve.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of item 3. We'll go into council discussion now. I will use the cues, so please if you'd like to speak on this item. Councilmember Courage.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been a very challenging situation brought before this council, and I think this is the kind of issue that the council should address when it's brought forward to us. You know, I noticed the first few presentations over the last year or so that was directed towards the horses. I was saying that there was a lot of abuse going on for horses. As a matter of fact, the last speaker said, oh, he has pictures or videos. You know, I've been looking at this issue for, I guess, almost a year. No one sent me any pictures or videos to help me understand what they say they see going on out there. So I have to go by what I hear and what I've seen for myself. I've been out to the to watch the carriages in action. I'll have to say I've been as annoyed as probably anybody else riding behind one of the carriages. But I also went out to the barns and saw the animals and how they're treated. You know, and it seems like the argument's been changing from abuse to exploitation. I heard that word used a lot today, exploitation. Well, does the city of San Antonio exploit the animals at the zoo?
Yes.
Yes. All right, folks, we're having council discussion now.
Does a private company like SeaWorld exploit animals at their facility?
All right, Councilmember Courage, we're going to ask you to hold up for a second. This is a council discussion. The discussion is among the council and staff. I'm asking everyone in the gallery to please keep their comments to themselves and keep the volume down so we can resume. If not, I will recess the meeting.
I was a military dog handler in the Air Force. Do our military dogs and canine units by the police being exploited? I understand you may want to say yes, but these are facts of lives that have a value to our society that the majority of people don't necessarily want to have disappear. But there are groups that do it. We have to make those kinds of decisions. But abuse was one of the big issues. Another big issue is traffic congestion. And like I said, I've been behind the carriages. I know they slow traffic down. I get annoyed because I want to go home after I've seen something downtown. But, you know, they're designed by tourists. And I've been to other cities and I've ridden in horse-drawn carriages. I think it's a valuable experience, and a lot of other people do too. But when we talk about congestion, and yes, they may slow us down, but have any of you been behind one of the new hop-on buses? Those big buses that are driving around the city, showing people the city with 10 or 20 or 30 people inside? They cause congestion too. Are we going to say their congestion should stop? The tourists like those. And then, you know, there was the argument about living in the past, you know, versus the 21st century. You know, we have the Alamo, we have the Missions, we have the Cenotaph, we have La Villita, we have San Fernando Cathedral, we have Breckenridge Park, we have San Pedro Springs. That's the past of San Antonio. We have the Conservation Society, who has fought for years to help maintain that past that is San Antonio and that is Texas. Now, certainly, we also need to look to the future. So you can take Brooks Air Force Base from 20 years ago and look at Brooks City Base today. And you can look at Kelly Air Force Base from 20 years ago, but you can look at Port SA today. But those were caused by evolution, not dissolution. And that's what we can think about, an evolution of maybe the horse-drawn carriage operations, how they could evolve, but not dissolve. You know, there's been some information about House Bill 2127 from 2023. And the Texas legislature passed the Regulatory Consistency Act, HB 2127. This law prohibits cities from enacting policies that ban businesses already operating within the law. It was written to stop the kind of action that's being proposed today. And you know, the current change presented in this issue right now, in this change in the code, is the use of horses with horse-drawn carriages in San Antonio will cease to operate on January 1st, 2028. If that isn't exactly what this bill was laid out to stop, I don't understand what it isn't supposed to stop. So for all of those observations of mine, I'm very reluctant to close a business that's operating illegally, that meets the needs of a lot of people in the city, tourists and residents, that is part of the history of San Antonio. And you know, I don't think those animals are being mistreated. Exploited? Yeah. Just like we exploited the zoo, and we exploit animals that work for police, etc. But I don't think that these businesses should be closed. So, those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Cruz. Councilmember Pledge.
Andy, I don't think we have a motion.
As far as I know, no, Councilman. We have a main motion in mind.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to amend the motion to include after horses the word equine, or any other equine member, just to make sure that we're capturing all the different draft animals out there. Andy,
Is that offered as a?
yeah,
Is there any objection to add language as a president to the motion?
No, everything we thank you find in the actual ordinance, Councilman, so I think it would cover what the animals do. It is equine in the ordinance.
okay, great, thank you. So I've been on the record numerous times. You know, I think 3 years is not when this began, but I understand, and I'm okay with going along with the other council members for a additional phase-out period. So I'll be voting yes on the 3-year phase-out period. I do think that it's important to mention that there are a lot of really fantastic arguments about this issue on both sides. I respect them, I hear them, but I just don't, I think in 2024, and maybe the time to do away with this kind of activity downtown. Not fast enough for my taste, but I think we're moving in the right direction. As far as good arguments on both sides, which I respect, the one that I don't respect is defaming people, for the purpose of bolstering the argument. tell you I have an appointee named Katie Jarl. Can't be here today because she's recovering from surgery, but that lady works for a company that advocates for issues like telemedicine for veterinarians, and then to somehow conflate that into lobbying city council as part of a conspiracy theory to promote ulterior motives and electric carriages and all that. Sounds interesting, but it serves no purpose other than to muddy the waters, and it's really one of the more dishonest things I've heard. And the lady up here who's peddling that garbage, shame on you. I will tell you, thank you to everybody who's participated in good faith in this debate, and thank you to my council members for taking this as seriously as this issue merits. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Velez. Councilmember Paulette, take it easy.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank all those who made time to make sure their voices were heard today. I know it's been a long meeting, but I appreciate your engagement. As I've previously mentioned, my primary concern with the horse-drawn carriages is their potential to hinder public safety by impeding emergency vehicles and slowing down traffic. I've advocated for one transition. The people of San Antonio have spoken and they want these horses off the streets. I do, however, understand the business's need for a transition time. Therefore, I'm willing to concede to a 3-year transition. My preference is for these horses to be phased out regardless as soon as possible, and let's move forward with this. Thank you.
Councilmember Rosa Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a few questions for staff, and the first one is on the electric carriage that was presented today. And the follow-up there, so can you help me understand, maybe Richard, like if you all have addressed that matter just yet?
Yes, Councilwoman. The decision was made to bring that separately, so that would be a separate process where we discuss it with the Transportation Advisory Board and into the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, something like that.
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in. I think the councilman was asking about the reference that one of the speakers had about the electric carriage.
My apologies, I jumped ahead of you, Councilwoman. Yes, so we are aware of that operating. We have cited that electric carriage on multiple occasions, and we've instructed our inspectors that if we catch them operating again as a vehicle for hire, so that's kind of long pole in the tent, showing that somebody paid to ride it, that we will impound that vehicle.
How many are operating right now?
So the owner has 2, one of which we know is operating.
And how many citations have they received?
I think it's 2 right now.
And then the impound, after that, at what point does the impounding happen?
So that's what we told them, if we catch them operating again as a vehicle for hire, we're going to impound the vehicle.
And do you impound that vehicle or both of them? Do you impound that vehicle or all of his?
So we'll impound that vehicle that was operating illegally.
Got it, thank you. And then, so, and I know we're going to talk about the electric, once possibly after this decision is made, but I'd also like to, whoever's working on it, and likely will be you, Richard, just some alternatives for inclusion and accessibility. Those are all the comments I have, and I'm going to be listening to my colleagues say so. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Rosa Garcia. Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. So today, I find to be a little bit of a sad day here in our city's history. It seems that the council's intent on becoming the first city in Texas to ban these horse-drawn carriages. I think all too often here at City Hall, we forget about or we don't do enough for the small businesses that we have in San Antonio. As has been already heard today, this is a lot of jobs that are on the line. These are a lot of people that have invested their time and capital in these companies. They provide, they're really part of our culture in downtown San Antonio. I am not in favor of what I think is going to happen today. And it seems to me, though, that if council's intent on eliminating these businesses, we should at least do what we can to make the transition as less as possible. I mean, it's going to be a painful process for these folks, for their employees, but we need to do what we can to help them, their financial situation move forward. And so that's why today, Mayor, I would like to make a motion to extend the horse carriage's tenure in San Antonio from 3 years to 5 years. So I think that would put an end date on the carriages at January 1st, 3030. And I hope that my colleagues would consider this motion and consider the owners, the employees, and everybody involved in these horse carriage companies and you know, their livelihoods during the next few years of this transition.
Councilman, can you restate the motion? I heard I heard January 1st, 30th.
I believe that makes it a 5-year transition.
23rd.
Yes.
All right, there was a motion and a second for amending the main motion to be a end date transitioning out by January 1st, 2030. So we will have a motion, we'll have a discussion and a vote on that first before we get to the main motion. Is there anyone that would like to discuss the amendment? I will just make a couple of comments since we're going to vote on this amendment. To be clear, this is a motion for an amendment to a main motion that the councilman will vote against. So, a little disingenuous, but that's what is on the table. So, if there's no further discussion on the amendment, Councilmember Villarreal.
I will be voting for this amendment because I hear the desire to phase out the carriages, and the carriages have stated that that 5 years seems to work. It's not ideal, but it gives them a point, and I think we need to go back. I will be voting against, and you can call it disingenuous or whatever you want. I will be voting against the 3-year phase because when I came to the council on September 30th, or around Halloween, I told you that this was not enough time. I asked questions and didn't get any data. So I do not have enough information to see that this will be done equitably and fairly in 3 years. And any conversation and I go off of this bill, when we started it in 2022, it did not get heard by the governance committee until 2024. So to say that we've been doing this for 2, we haven't. We just started this year. And so there's a lot of questions I have. So I will leave that because I hear the council and their intent, so 5 years. But if this doesn't pass, it will be a no for the next round. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Villarreal. Councilmember Castillo.
Thank you, Rick, for the presentation. In a couple of months, this body will be up here saying, let's rodeo San Antonio. And we know that the San Antonio rodeo brings about 1 million in tourists and roughly $300 million of economic investment into the city of San Antonio. And then a couple months later, we'll be celebrating Fiesta, and we'll all be lining up to participate in parades with our cars and with horses in the mix, absorbing those exhausts, right? So I highlight those examples
contract veterinarian, Dr. Esky, did not cite anything in one meeting that he attended at the Transportation Infrastructure Committee.
Thank you for that. I think, the exploitation with all these other industries, but my goal is to highlight the hypocrisy of the folks up here that are eager to kill jobs when we know that there's economic uncertainty that many of our families are experiencing. These drivers are parents, caregivers, and they're taxpayers, and I don't see why my colleagues are so eager to kill an industry when there's larger profit-making industries where animals are backloaded and dragged for sport. But I don't hear that concern here. But what I am hearing from folks is, let's phase out this industry tomorrow, and some folks say, we don't want to phase out our industry, but I am hearing consensus on how can we phase this out in a way that doesn't put our small businesses in the position of asset forfeiture and debt, right? And this is something that I've expressed that I do not think lightly, because these are Texas families that we're putting in harm's way by putting them at risk of debt and accruing debt. I think one of the speakers did a great job of highlighting the circular economy in which not only is this killing the industry of the horse-drawn carriages, but also these folks patron other small businesses. And I think it's important to state whatever action this body takes, it does not waive their obligations to their landlord or their leases. It does not waive their obligations to provide care for these animals. With that being said, I will be supportive of the motion put forth by Councilman White, because I believe it is a compromise that one does ultimately phase out the horse-drawn carriages, but does not put our families at risk of debt. Ultimately, if that amendment is not successful, I will not be supporting the phasing out of the horse-drawn carriages within 3 years. Thank you.
Castillo, Councilmember Ford.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for city staff. In the last presentation that we received, there was the horse carriage owners requested 5% because of debt that they had. And I asked for us to ask for evidence of that debt. Did we ever receive that?
Good morning, Councilmember Freddie Dix, Director of Economic Development. It was requested, and because of public information requirements and so forth, they were not willing to provide it paper copy or electronically. However, they were more than happy to allow us the opportunity to review. And as mentioned at the last meeting, I did have the opportunity to review a couple of those.
Was that after the last meeting that you saw additional evidence of it?
No, so prior to the last meeting, I reviewed 2 of the 5 companies' financials.
Okay. But you hadn't, and since then, you were not able to receive any additional information on the financials?
We were not able to schedule. Again, the request was to receive the information versus review.
Yeah, I asked for that as well. Felt like the amount was extremely high and was wondering what small business, like how we define small business, it's an $18,000 debt payment a month is pretty significant debt payment, so I was looking for evidence for that.
Yeah, I was able to review information again for 2 of the companies to corroborate that debt, but again, did not receive it due to concerns regarding public information.
And was that, because as I understand, it's 3 owners, it's 5 companies with 3 owners, is that?
A combination of.
Okay, so they have multiple LLCs with 2 different groups that have 5 licenses each. Can we accurately on that?
There's some relationships there, but 5 separate companies.
And so was that debt on multiple companies combined?
No, it was individually as they report to the IRS.
Okay.
And 2 separate groups.
Okay. My challenge here is I asked for information. I asked for additional information regarding this to help corroborate a 3 to 5 year transition and didn't receive it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Ford. Maria, can I ask you to come up for just a second? So the amendment motion on the table is about a 5-year phase out as opposed to a 3-year recommendation. So obviously the phased out percentages of the hours is going to have to change. Can you describe how you would handle that?
Sure. So for consideration of this council for that motion that is on the floor, the current plan that we presented for 3 years will reduce the hours beginning in January of 2025. If the council desires to extend the phase-out period to 5 years,
could consider leaving the hours as they are today for the first 2 years and then follow what we have proposed in the ordinance for the last 3 for the total of the 5-year phase-out periods. But we would have to make, I'm assuming that addition to the motion.
Mayor, if I can make a suggestion procedurally, Councilman White is open to that. If he could adjust his motion to say to extend the transition from 3 to 5 years and adjust the transition timelines accordingly. So then we would follow the plan that Maria just outlined.
Okay. Councilmember White, did you hear what Andy just said about the phase out hours?
Yes, happy to have.
Okay.
That should be
That's concurred by Councilmember White. All right. Is there any further discussion on the amendment, which is again a 5-year phase out as opposed to a 3-year phase out? Okay. If there's none, then let's go ahead and vote closed on the motion for a 5-year phase out. And this again is just the amendment to the main motion. Councilmember White.
Yes.
Councilmember Balehouse.
No.
Okay, motion carries. So it is a 5-year phase out on the table. So we'll now go to discussion on the main motion, which has been amended to a 5-year phase out of horse-drawn carriages. Any further discussion? Councilmember Ricky Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start off by acknowledging how we got to this point. For more than a decade now, San Antonians have wanted to have a conversation about horse-drawn carriages and the morality of their use in this industry. So when I co-authored this ECR in 2022, I did so in the hopes that we as a city would have a robust, honest, and fair conversation about the horse-drawn carriage industry in our downtown. It's taken nearly 2 years to get to this point, and I believe my hopes have been fulfilled somewhat by the journey of this process. I've had the opportunity to meet with carriage operators on 4 occasions in the past few months, as well as animal rights advocates, other community members, city staff, and I've paid close attention to the input process especially. My decision today was made in a spirit of collaboration and compromise, and I did not take my vote today lightly. While my proposal was for a ban to have taken effect a year ago, and there are still many of us who would prefer an immediate ban, as well as those who would prefer a longer timeline or no ban at all. 3 years of compromise we got together. Today it seems like we're getting to 5 years, so then we support of it. And what I've heard several times is the argument that a ban on horse-drawn carriages is anti-business or anti-labor, and that's a very lazy stance to take with all the effort that continues to go into this transition. The labor movement is not just about securing fair and just working conditions for those who can advocate for themselves. It's also about preventing the exploitation of the labor of anyone. Anyone being forced to walk for hours downtown in 94-degree weather, breathing in the exhaust of cars driving past them, carrying a bag of urine and fecal matter without their consent is unjust, and that includes for these horses. There is a 2023 study that shares that carriage horses are forced to breathe in exhaust fumes, and this leads to respiratory conditions like bronchitis, rhinitis, and inflammatory airway disease. And a veterinarian study found that the lung damage of carriage horses was similar to that of a heavy smoker. We've received that feedback from experts. So we have a duty to care for all, and I don't sacrifice the humanity of anyone in my decision making, whether it's the black and brown folk who have been brutalized by police, whether it's the people living in uncertainty because the city council incentivized the demolition of their apartments. And I have never taken lightly the fact that we are having a conversation about the livelihoods of people in this industry and their families. I believe that we are all interconnected, and I've been a consistent voice in that spirit. And I'm down to have a conversation about the rodeo and Fiesta police dogs. I'm down. So while this issue is complex, and of course we're not going to reach a point where every business owner will be happy, and it may be a challenge to find employment that is exactly the same, and there may be fear or uncertainty of how successful carriages may be as a new venture, we cannot let fear stop progress, and we cannot let this conflict prevent us from fighting together for a just transition beyond today's vote. My commitment is still there. We must do what is right, which is banning the horse-drawn carriages and spending the next 5 years supporting the business owners and the employees in their next steps. There will be an opportunity to support the purchase of e-carriages. There will be an opportunity for folks to find employment, whether through Ready to Work or another program. Opportunities to transfer debt to zero interest loans. We have so many tools at our disposal, and to think that we have to stop progress because we aren't creative enough to utilize these tools is tragic and short-sighted. The San Antonio City Council banned puppy mills in the city just a few years ago, which closed down several small businesses and left employees without a job, with no transition plan, with no phase-out period, none of that. They recognized and exploited their business model and shut it down, and I hope every person on this council will stand by that decision today. We know that society increasingly values ethical considerations in how businesses operate, even when it means closing down or transforming traditional industries. That's why a majority of San Antonians believe we should transition the industry to e-carriages, and I do want to help us get there. So again, the argument that banning horse-drawn carriages is anti-business, anti-labor ignores the fact that this industry is fundamentally rooted in exploitation. And while some carriage drivers may earn high wages, those wages come at the cost of perpetuating an exploitative and outdated practice. True pro-labor policies prioritize sustainable, ethical jobs with protections for all parties involved. If you believe yourself to be pro-labor and that belief has a limit, I wonder whose labor you're willing to see exploited and at what cost. So I'm disappointed by those who have chosen to stand aside sensationalism and fear-mongering rather than working to build a consensus. The goalpost has been moved time and time again over the past 2 years, whether it's our horses are treated well, but the regulations prevent us from earning more profit, so the regulations are great now, but we need to be able to spread throughout downtown. The e-carriages will never be successful, so we'll start an e-carriage business if the city gives us money for it, and then again, from our horses are like family and they enjoy walking on hot asphalt, so my horses cost a lot of money, and if times are tough, I'll sell them to a bad owner or send them to slaughter. And then, we don't want to be at other locations like Carriages Park, we need to be downtown, so we've never been approached with the idea of alternative locations. I have been consistent. Horses do not belong downtown. The business model is exploitative, and they need to know. I've offered alternatives, and I've been met with pettiness and insults, and that's unprofessional. So I look forward to finally passing my vote in favor of this today. There have been 2 years since we started this conversation here, and there will be 3 more years from today, from January 1st, to continue that. I've reached out, I'll close out by saying I've reached out to the Brady Hunter Foundation, which is willing and eager to support transition of horses to reputable and safe rescues across the country and provide financial support for the purchase of e-carriages. I look forward to the evolution of the industry from horse-drawn carriages to e-carriages.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just reviewing the city code that was presented to us. Maria, maybe you can help us understand with what we're considering right now, we would keep all of the code that is currently in place until January 1st of 2027. That's the next 2 years. Then we would implement the changes that were being recommended to the code starting in 2028, 2029, through 2030. I do see a couple of things. It says no new permits to operate will be issued effective December 12, 2024. Would we still be keeping that? That Animal Care Services Department will not license new horses effective December 12, 2024. So we're pretty much saying that the status quo will continue, but no new horses will be added, no new licenses will be provided as of the end of this year or January 1st of next year. Is that what you would suggest would be the wording on this?
Yes, but let me just clarify, Councilman. So the changes that we would make to the document that was provided for this action is that the banning of the horses will be effective January 1, 2030. The other change would be the hours of operation. The hours of operations today will continue for the next 2 years, and then the phase-out period that we had initially proposed will start in the 3rd year. So the last 3 years will see a reduction in hours. Those would be the only changes to what we provided to you for this item.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. I do have a few questions now that we've moved to the 5-year conversations over these next 5 years? Yes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for your work, all those who came out and shared. I know this isn't the solution that everybody wanted in, but I think this is the solution in the correct step to make sure that we are handling this issue and we are actually having conversations. I'd also like to thank George Garcia, who's part of the Transportation Advisory Board, who worked really hard on this effort, continued to talk with me and talk with the carriage owners and my staff for their efforts. So I would look forward to supporting this 5-year transition today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. Councilmember Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank Art Martinez and his team and their advocacy and meeting with us to ensure that we're kept well into what was being discussed and what was not being discussed. I think the action that we'll be taking today is a compromise that you all proposed. I know it's not the outcome that everyone wanted, but I do believe it is that compromise that we should always strive for. I also wanted to thank Robert, my transportation appointee, who was sure to share with me that the committee unanimously did not approve, voted against the phasing out of the horse and carriages, but ultimately just what we're taking action right now is what the folks that I met with were asking that we compromise with. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Castillo. Any further discussion on the main motion? Councilmember White.
Yeah, just briefly, I want to echo Councilwoman Castillo's comments on this. I know this is not the ideal outcome for our horse carriage businesses, but I am pleased today that enough of my council colleagues will use a compromise to give these businesses a runway here to sort of phase out in a more fiscally responsible and manner. So I do appreciate my colleagues on that, and I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Elias.
Thank you. I'll be abstaining today. 5 years is too long for me. I think it's whippy, and it's really just a wet approach to something that's very important. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Elias. Any further discussion on the main motion? Okay, well, let me just make a couple comments really quickly. No less than 3 times in the last 7 years, I've been asking if we could consider this. So first of all, thank you to my colleagues, Councilmember Gebron and Mickey Rodriguez for bringing this up and moving through the process for which we are here today. I share some similar sentiments with my colleagues who want a faster timeline. We do want to do this in a fair and just manner. And I thank the staff again for working with these companies on solutions. I know they're not solutions that we can all agree on, perhaps are even relevant for you, but we will do our best to make sure that the economic impact to you and your livelihoods are minimized. But the reality is, I have long believed, as our community continues to grow, as we see the increased activity of downtown, that horse-drawn carriages, novelty rides, do not belong in the main arteries of downtown. And so that's what I'm looking forward to addressing today. We've got other challenges that have been noted up here that we will have to address and look at, but there's a 5-year phase-in, a 3-year phase-in. As long as we are moving in that direction expeditiously, I will be satisfied. My apologies to you, Councilman White, and I appreciate your amendment. If it gets more of our body on board with this phase out, I will support that as well. So with that, there's a motion amended to 5 years. And with no further discussion, let's vote. Councilmember White.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailout.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we'll move down to
we did provide to our benchmark communities, and we also provided the participant organizations. If you may recall, during the session, we have highlighted revisions to the policy regarding a number of items associated with workforce, the wages, specifically power intensive users, and then additional considerations that were raised were additions to
wind down the industry. But the 5-year window gives us an opportunity.
I'm involved in point, so. Dylan. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're gonna do it.
Try to get up. Yeah, we're gonna try to get before you.
Take it at the rear.
Thank you.
Get a one-on-one. Obviously, we're disappointed that the city council voted to wind down the horse carriage industry. We do think moving to the 5-year plan gives us a little wiggle room. Obviously, we're going to continue working with the city. We're going to consider all of our options, including possible litigation. We do believe, as one of the councilmen spoke, that this action is preempted by state law. And we have a legislative session coming up too, so we're going to be talking to our legislators about possible solutions. But we're grateful for the 2-year continuation, extension, if you will, to give us an opportunity to continue to negotiate and work on ultimately preserving the horse carriage industry.
Can you clarify, there were some questions on how much debt the 5 companies owe. Can you clarify that?
Collectively, it's around $5 million.
But what are they, I mean, obviously they're different companies, so
Correct.
what are they each owe?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but structurally, it's a lot of SBA loans, which helped them get through COVID. It's lease obligations, and it's, again, just horse carriage industry is capital intensive, so it's monies that were used to purchase horses, carriages, that type of thing.
Are any of those owners actually here today?
Yes, they are.
Can we speak to some of them as well?
Yes.
Yeah, great. 5 years. Is that enough time to get all that $5 million of debt off their books?
If they're allowed to operate at full capacity, we believe it is. But again, we have 2 years to work towards that, to negotiate, try to restructure it, or to even bring it back to council and show our progress. So the nice thing about the 5-year extension is it's a working timeline, if you will. And so
5 years was something that you suggested? That the companies suggested?
It was based upon the amount of debt. I mean, the goal of the owners was to protect the welfare of the horses and not have them be auctioned off by a bankruptcy trustee. But so 5 years was an aggressive timeline, but if moving towards that goal, they felt that they could possibly achieve it. Now that was also predicated on the assumption that they would be operating at full capacity. Here it tapers down for the last 3 years. But again, we have a few years to come back and negotiate. show progress, and come May there'll be a different council as well.
Well, is it disingenuous then to offer 5 years as a compromise with the hope that that just gives you more time to undermine the new ban?
It's not. Our offer was 5 years at full capacity. They're the ones who decided to taper it down and undermine the proposal.
What is the next step in fighting this overall?
It's considering whether litigation or legislation is the proper way to assert the state preemption. I mean, the state came in exactly for this purpose, and they want consistent regulation across the state. San Antonio already has one of the most restrictive horse carriage ordinances in the state, and I think everybody agrees to the slippery slope. If you agree with the predicate, with the underlying rationale for this ban, then a whole slew of industries are at stake.
And this would be the first city to
absolutely first
want to phase them out altogether
in Texas.
How many horses do the 5 companies have?
Well, I only represent 4 of the 5. Of the 4, it's approximately 40.
So when you're talking about the $5 billion, is that just the 4 of the companies you're representing? To be clear.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not the 5.
Right. I don't have information on the Lone Star. Sure. It's Yellow Rose. I represent Yellow Rose, HRH, Lollipop, Blue Bonnet Carriage Company, and there's a 5th one, which is Lone Star.
¿Hablas español?
I only represent the first one.
Do you speak Spanish?
Not fluently.
Thanks, sir.
Stephanie was here.
That's what I'm
Kathy, the general manager. Sorry. I know. Stephanie here. They want to talk.
I really want to we can go ahead and do you now, if that's okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, first question, always the easiest. Can I have your first and last name?
Yes, my name is Rose Hill.
Can you spell that?
ROSCHILL.
Okay, and so what is your connection to these horse-drawn carriages?
Well, my connection is, first of all, I'm a 35-year community leader in District 2, and this business is in District 2, and I'm also previous native of a small business, so I know what it is to have a small business, what it is to struggle to have a small business.
Do you think this is fair for those small businesses?
No, I don't think it's fair, because we should have started this negotiation, this discussion 2 years ago. It took our councilman this long to come and finally meet with them. Maybe things would have worked out differently, but when you don't have communication, and there was no communication, these people had to find out that their businesses were going to be closed by the media. They were never told that their business was going to be closed down. They found out the hard way through the media.
Okay, and what does this mean for small businesses in general?
This is not good for small businesses, because small businesses is what brings economic development to San Antonio. And here in the city of San Antonio, we got to practice what we preach. When we talk about small businesses, we're talking about work, about sending these people to the workforce commission to find jobs and stuff. What about all these other businesses in San Antonio? Who could be next? And if we talk about congestion, what about the horses and like we said, for the sheriffs, the dogs? Are we going to eliminate the rodeo? What about when the traffic comes to the spurs and the baseball field? When that's going to be congestion. So ultimately,
Okay, and so it was a very good point that was made. made that we have had tourists shot and killed in downtown San Antonio, do you think these horse carriages are as big of a deterrent for tourists as those killings, those shootings that have happened?
No, I think we should be focusing more on crime than having somebody take a horse and buggy carriage through the city of San Antonio. That's a piece of history that's being taken away. We should be focusing more about people walking. That lady that was walking down there for graduation and got shot and killed. The crime should be more consistent with downtown, but not about a horse and carriage, putting 5 horse and carriage businesses out of work. And at a Christmas time especially, it's a shame that we're even talking about this at Christmas time. I wish they had waited after to bring this to the table.
Okay, anything else you would like to add?
No, I just wanted to basically say that the city of San Antonio needs to listen to small business owners, because the small business owners is what makes up a lot of their budget, the city budget. They're part of that. They pay taxes, and they contribute to the city budget. So I hope in the future that the next council and the next mayor comes in, they take a whole heart to the voice of San Antonio and the constituents, and they really support economic development, small businesses. Let's practice what we preach. Thank you.